So we would like to please welcome to the stage David and Josh.
Information we can get and how happy we are, and we've had previous providers that we're willing to do deals with, and we get to that level and we think, no, it's just not worth the risk.
Yeah, and one of the things around that is you can make the request of your suppliers, but are they actually actioning it and are they following through with it? I mean, one of the things we discussed is visibility. You can buy the best technology in the world. That technology can alert you to every single thing that's happening. Somebody's trying to hack you, one of your users is trying to download an app that's not verified, but if nobody's looking at these alerts, these events, 24/7, then you could have whole periods of time where your system's been compromised and you don't know about it. And that kind of visibility is a crucial thing. The best technology in the world can't protect you from nobody looking at it.
Very true. And I think an easy, early telltale sign is when you ask for information, if they're not willing to give you information, there's your first red flag.
That's very true, very true. And that focuses for everything, not just cybersecurity as well. The compliance is a big thing as well.
Yeah, 100%. Perfect. All right then, mate, let's move to the next one. So now we've learned about that. The critical steps should an operator take to minimise these damages, especially directly after a breach? And then how should they be communicated to stakeholders, customers, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, this is a massively extensive topic, and it comes down to understanding two things. Your obligation to your customers, and your obligation externally to your licensees and the people who grant you access into the market. So it's something that has to be planned so far ahead of time. It's unreal. I mean, one of the things, we're a technology company, so if you ask our salespeople, they'll sell you the best technology in the world. But fundamentally, there's three key things. There's your people, your processes, and your technology. Technology is the last thing. So the process is one of the things we spend most of our time doing. So it's do you have a run book for what happens if? What happens if somebody downloads a wrong app? What happens if you get a data breach? And it's keeping that updated, it's running exercises, it's having a full campaign, and you can call them a tabletop exercise, a war room, and not just testing the systems, but running through, okay, we've detected an event, who do I escalate it to? Who do I notify internally? And then, the worst bit is, if you're a multi-state, multi-jurisdiction company, you have to map that out for every single jurisdiction you operate in. And that is one of the most time-consuming, one of the most important exercises you can undertake.
Valuable one, though. Super
valuable, and the other thing is, at a certain point in time, you have to seek external expertise, be it for a PR company to manage your messaging out to your users, out to your partners. There are specialist companies out there who are dedicated in crisis response, and it's a decision that, do you try to in-house that, or it's one of those things where it's probably worth outsourcing to a specialist company, at least having somebody on retainer.
100%. And then would you say, in the work that you've done in the past, have you come across some businesses who have brilliant playbooks and have set up so well in this area that you could probably take elsewhere, or even you could set up even better?
We have a couple of clients who that's the case, and they tend to be ones that operate in verticals outside of gaming as well as gaming. So if they operate in a retail market, or if they have a finance arm or some kind of fintech arm, they will have some fairly heavy and some well-rehearsed runbooks and playbooks, because the nicest possible way, gaming, yes, there's a lot of regulation, but very little of the regulation focuses on any kind of cybersecurity or cybersecurity incident response. If you look outside of our industry, there are massive requirements that we don't always meet as an industry. You read a lot of the technical regs around what you should do, and should is the word. You read some of the regs and it says, you should ensure this is secure. Now, that's not telling you anything. I'm not suggesting more regulation. You will all hound me out of the room if I suggest more regulation, but there's well-established frameworks for how you should operate out there. There's ISO frameworks, there's NIST frameworks, and the important thing is it gives you a guideline of how you should structure your business when it comes to not only the technology, but the processes, the runbooks, the notifications, and all that kind of thing. We're not telling people to reinvent the wheel here, we're just saying there are standards out there. At some point in time, they're going to come into our industry, and they should come into our industry by our own volition. We should work and strive towards them before we're forced to do them if you want to operate in this market or that market.
Very true. And then you need to tailor them for your business as well. What works for mine is not going to work for yours, etc.
Yeah, that's true. You need to tailor them, but also you may come to a situation where it's not worth the price of entry into that market at that particular time for you as a client. If you're trying to launch something and the requirements are too onerous, maybe it's not the time to go there. An unpopular opinion, but you're going to get found out at a certain point in time, and yeah.
You'd rather find out sooner rather than later. It's much more easier to do as a business that way.
That's true, and one of the things, I didn't cover it earlier, but historically when you're looking at cyber attacks, it's always been about data breaches. Somebody is going to get your client data, try and ransom it or sell it on the internet. It's reached the point now where there's been so many large data breaches, there's one every single day. You read about in the news, the nicest possible way, your personal data is almost worthless at this point in time. The big risk for you as an organisation and you as a company is somebody taking your ability to operate away. So we're not talking about stealing your data and trying to sell it. We're going to say, we'll get into your systems and we'll just lock you out of it. If we lock access to your platform or lock access to your PAM or any of your systems, that's the big risk. And ransomware is a hot topic, and it's what's happened to a number of big names recently. And we have a number of people in our security team who monitor some forums and stuff that shall not be named, but there's active recruitment campaigns out there where they're incentivizing mostly land-based casinos at the moment, but staff there to basically allow them to compromise in exchange for Bitcoin. So active recruitment campaign, currently targeted at land-based, but they're going to come after a lot online at some point in time.
Yeah, wow. So while we are on prevention, let's talk about moving into your own business and training. What's the best way? And I would assume everyone in here has been through the standard, you've got to do a course or a training, you've got the slides, you've got to answer the questions at the end, there's a quiz. What do you feel is the best way for that to happen internally for a business? Like, is there a way that we can jazz that up, make it more exciting?
It's difficult to make exciting, let's face it. Those training videos that Microsoft push out there with the little animated people, they're super boring. Yeah, training is crucially important. Your people are your biggest strength and your biggest weakness. There's very little way to make it exciting. You could make it exciting by testing people. I mean, we run constant exercises internally with our clients where we try and send them, fake emails. We'll download links, we'll send them text messages, we'll send them voicemails, and I'll hold up my hand. I fall foul of them often enough to get a slap on the wrist occasionally, but it's the constant repetition, and to a certain degree it's going to annoy some of your staff, but it's crucial. There are so many threat vectors out there that you have to train your staff, retrain, and incentivize them to do it. I'm not suggesting stick. I mean, I've been slapped a few times for clicking on the wrong link, but you've got to incentivize them and make it a key objective and mandatory for your staff to undertake the training, repetitive training. Unfortunately, there's no sexy way to do it. There's no way to make it interesting. It is just constant testing.
Yeah, I was hoping for some gold from you there. One of the good things, what I find fun at our work is they will send these test emails or whatever it may be, and then if you report it correctly, like it cheers for you, you've done the correct thing. I've won. I've beat the system. So that's probably the only fun thing that we do.
That's true. I mean, that's something I didn't cover. That yes, it's great people can identify something that's trying to fool them into clicking the wrong link, but if they don't report it to you as a security team or you as an IT team, if it's not a training exercise, you won't know it's happening. And that's incredible. So that's probably one of the most important things you can do, is not only train your people, but train them to report anything that's suspicious. You're better off having a lot more false positives than you are than people downloading something dodgy.
That's a good point. All right, let's move on to the future. So future trends. So we've spoken about what threats have happened in the past. What do you foresee happening in the future? What does this look like? And you just mentioned one with the Bitcoin going into online. Potentially going into online. What do you think that is going to be the future, and how do we start to prepare for this?
Okay, if I knew the true answer, it's either because I'm generating the threats myself, or I've got a new super great product and I'm going to launch my own business. And at the moment, all we know is it's just going to be more of the same, but with increased frequency. Now, I mentioned AI earlier. The programs out there, like ChatGPT and some of the other ones they've launched, they are not a direct threat, but what they've allowed bad actors, or whatever you want to call them, they've allowed them to 10 or 20x the amount of targets they can target, because for experiment purposes, you can say, hey, Google Gemini, write me a script to target LiveScore with a DDoS attack, and it will do it. So that we're going to see more and more of the same, which means we have to adopt similar but different technologies to counteract it. So it's unfortunately going to be more of the same, and getting the right technology and partners to counteract it is going to be crucial. And fundamentally, there's a reason why a lot of these things are called zero-day vulnerabilities, because nobody knows about them. You've just got to have your processes nailed down, have your people trained, and do the best you can. And the one last thing is, everyone loves a call to action, is we've got to be more honest in sharing information amongst ourselves as an industry. We've got plenty of examples of people receiving demands for ransom. Give me 5 Bitcoin or I'll take your platform down. Now, there's plenty of information within these ransoms that can be correlated to identify the groups that are doing it. And until we start sharing more of this information as an industry, we're all going to be more at risk. So that's one of the things. So ignoring the threat landscape, one of the best things we can do right now is more open sharing. I'm not talking about publishing it online, but more collaboration between your information security officers at various other companies would be a huge benefit to the industry. And if I'm allowed one little plug, we have a threat exchange, which is not a sales tool, it's a private Slack channel that contains chief information security officers and SecOps from a number of big brands. And the whole thing is, it's no reporting, closed doors, sharing intelligence out there. We're not asking for trade secrets, we're just saying that you detecting an attack against one of your platforms contains so much information that could be helpful to everyone else in the industry. We've all got a target on our back, so the call to action is, let's collaborate, let's share, and we'll make it better for everyone.
And I was just about to ask you that as well, like the first steps for us to be able to do that, there's a great first step. What would happen? So for everyone who's in this room at the moment who might be thinking, hey, it's a great idea, I want to jump on board, what happens then? So if they join up, that information, how do they benefit from that? From just giving that information of what's happened to them, their personal experience, what do they get from that as well? Like, what can they take away?
So one of the most important things around intelligence gathering is it gives you the patterns. So, the way we detect cybersecurity incidents is around patterns. Have we seen this before? Has this affected somebody else? Has it been targeted somebody else? So if it's something new, the quicker we can update our platforms, the quicker all the other cybersecurity platforms can update, the better protected everyone will be. And sometimes it's even down to simple things. We've detected a credential stuffing attack against our platform from this particular IP address in the Philippines. If you notify that around everyone can be aware and block that one. It's simple steps like that.
Yeah, which would save a lot of time, a lot of money.
Yeah, it's one of the things, we're all competitors, but we're all in this together as well, At a certain point in time, we have to help each other out.
100%, I definitely know that. All right, mate, now time is up. We've made it with a minute to spare. Thank you very much for joining. Really appreciate it. I shall hand it over.
Thank you very much.
We've got time for a couple of questions. Yes?
We're
just waiting for a mic. If you can give us just 1 sec, there's a mic runner coming so we can all hear your question, please and thank you.
Should have talked longer.
You mentioned the Philippines there, and we've been running a lot of stories on casinos.com on some of the big busts and the cyber criminals. North Korea, obviously, China, Russia are seen as some of the geolocations of the main threats. Do you identify those countries? Have you got a sort of a red sort of alert for certain areas of the world that you could potentially get more from, and then use IP blocking and all sorts of things, tools to mitigate that?
Yeah, it's one of the simplest things you can do to protect your systems is if you are an operator targeted on the Dutch market and you're only ever going to take bets from Dutch citizens, why do you have traffic coming in from China, the Philippines, even the US. Just block that traffic and drop it. It's one of the simplest things you can do. And identifying what your traffic normally looks like is crucial. So do you know where your players are, what platforms they come through, and the simplest thing you can do is just drop everything else. Don't even let them get into your system. So yeah, identification is a key thing, and it's one of the things we do on our platforms and all the other ISPs do. It's readily available data, and it's a simple thing to do.
Thank you. Any other questions? Lots of juicy nuggets from this panel, including your data is worthless, but keeping your eye on how to potentially, what threats are there to potentially disable you from operating is a thing to get